Will you pray with me? Gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, here we are in the 5th Sunday in Lent, and man, it feels longer, doesn't it? When we began this journey, we spoke about the origins of the season and how its theme of longing and emptiness and hunger reflects what is happening in the natural world outside. The way the bare earth can reflect our bare lives, and that in this time, all we really have is the promise, the bare buds, the hope that warmth and life will return one day. And then just to move this Lenten metaphor into starker reality, we have the trauma of what we are experiencing every day in our country. Now, I know I hardly need to name it. Most of us are painfully aware of how it feels like our country is being dismantled, one executive order at a time. Last Sunday, I shared stories of some folks from deep red Louisiana who had come to feel like they were strangers in their own land. Well, I think many of us here today can relate to that. With each new headline, each shuttered agency, each new lie that is spoken from the rose garden, it becomes harder to recognize our home. The experience of exile, of being separated from one's homeland, brings with it deep trauma, especially when the separation is not of our own choosing. Human history is filled with such stories: war, famine, forced migration, enslavement. And I do not want to diminish the devastation that our ancestors went through by putting our current experience in the same category. But it can give us a glimpse of the kind of despair and feelings of powerlessness that exile can bring. And it can give us a glimpse into the backstory of our scripture story that Eli read for us this morning, the one that the prophet Isaiah is telling us. Now, we modern folks don't really know what to do with the prophets. They are usually loud and angry and frankly kind of obnoxious. They aren't here to tell us that everything we're doing is just great and life is going to turn out fine. Prophets speak out when the world has turned its collective back on God, when we have chosen to ignore God's ways and instead double down on our own, which almost always leads to heartbreak and injustice and oppression. It almost always leads to human beings behaving really, really badly, people forgetting who it is they belong to. And these actions have consequences. And you see, the Israelites had fallen into that trap. Centuries after they had been liberated from slavery into freedom, they had kind of forgotten their covenant with God. And they created a kingdom that looked and acted like all the other ones, where violence and wealth and fear were the foundations for their power. So here comes the prophet Isaiah, warning that their corruption and callousness, their idolization of wealth and power, would be their undoing. But the people wouldn't listen. That is, until the Babylonian Empire came riding over the hill, destroyed the city of Jerusalem, and conquered the people. Half were taken as exile as slaves. The other half were left to live in the shattered remains of their country. They lost everything they had, everything they knew, everything they were. And they lived in this desolation for 70 years. They had just about given up hope that they would ever be freed, that they would ever return home. And it's into this moment that Isaiah speaks. But how do you speak into this kind of despair? How do you even begin to find the words to help people hang on? Or better yet, find some meaning in their trauma? It's got to be the hardest thing about being a prophet. And these days, I got to say, it is the hardest thing about being a pastor, too. Each Sunday when I climb up here, I ask God the same question. How can I speak into this kind of despair? And adjusting for scale, I know that many of us are experiencing some form of trauma over what is happening in our country. There were around 8,000 of us in Brookdale Park yesterday. Yeah. And as some of you might have heard yesterday, at this point in our own collective sense of exile, I am as angry and overwhelmed and at times as despondent as you may be. And not only am I at a loss to speak meaningfully about what is happening to us as a nation, as a community, I'm not sure how to speak meaningfully about what is happening to us spiritually from all of this. How are we to find God in the mix? How are we to lean on our faith for some kind of comfort or guidance or courage? Is this chaos and confusion just the random destruction of one malignant narcissist? Or is there a deeper learning that God is offering to us through this? A needed experience buried in all this rubble? Or as we say in our communion service at times, will our breaking down become our breaking through? When I climb into this pulpit, I lean heavily on God to help me find the words, but I also lean heavily on all of you. Over the past couple of months, so many of you have buoyed me with words of encouragement and trust, and that helps me more than you can ever know. And I think that's the only way to speak any kind of word to you, because we know each other, right? And we trust each other. We've shared a lot together, and that matters. We are a community. We are a family. In many ways, we are home for each other. And we remember the struggles that we have faced together. That year when we barely had enough money to cover expenses and thought we would close. That really scary time when my husband's cancer took a life-threatening turn and you all gathered around us and saw us through with love and prayers and soup deliveries. The way we innovated during COVID to be sure we could keep worshiping together and keep connected to each other so that no one would feel alone. Those painful times when we lost beloved members tragically and too soon and gathered together in grief. And each time we've gone through trauma, it has changed us. We've had to reimagine what it is to be church, what it is to be faithful. We've had to let go of some of our tidy and tame ideas about God and how she's at work in all of it. We've had to develop eyes to see his divine hand in the middle of our despair and to look for signs of new life, for springs in the desert. Those hard times have helped shape us as a church and as a people. And they've given us a shared language, a language of hope. It was the same for Isaiah. As the theologian Craig Barnes noted, he knew how to speak into the chaos and confusion of a people who had suffered not only a traumatic disruption of their life, but also a disrupted understanding of God. They had been holding on to a rather naive theology, their cherished expectation of what it meant to be God's chosen people. And all of that crumbled along with their temple in Jerusalem. And now they were exiled from both the land and the notion that God would protect them. And Isaiah, he doesn't pull any punches with them. Yes, he says, your actions have brought you to this place and God's punishment is severe. The world as you know it has broken apart. But, Isaiah tells them, there is salvation in it too if it leads you to a deeper understanding of your covenant with God. If it propels you into a new way of living, a new way of caring for each other, if it empowers you to create a new kind of community that lets go and rejects all those false idols of wealth and power, and instead supports the flourishing of all people. Disruption, even trauma, can hold out the promise of hope. It's good to remember the ways that God has brought you through the struggles, Isaiah says. You can build on that. But do not dwell on the past, for God is about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? God will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. So hold on and hang on and open your eyes and your hearts to signs of hope. Even if they are hidden from us, it is alive, working under the surface. But you cannot see them without first taking that hard road into the unknown. Sometimes you've got to let it all break down before that new thing can break through. And the wilderness is the place for that. But the thing about it is it's really easy to get lost there. And when we do, it's really easy to get frightened and angry and despairing. But the prophet's job is not to hurry us through to the other side or show us the shortcut. Their job is simply to mark the path for us, to help us name what we are seeing, to invite us to look for signs of spring in the desert, of water in the wasteland, to remind us that God has not forgotten us, but is instead working to shape our souls. Because here's the truth about the wilderness. No one leaves it the same person they were when they walked in. You can't spend that kind of intense, soul-bearing time with God and not come out a new creation. So as we reach these last weeks of our Lenten journey, as we struggle with the chaos and confusion that swirls around us in the world outside, we may struggle with perceiving this new thing God is doing. We may ask, what will our new home possibly look like? What kind of people must we become in order to build such a place? Those are our questions. But the good news is, whether we know it or not, we are being changed, shaped, transformed through the hardships we face. The experience of exile can teach us to speak the language of hope, to name the new kind of homeland we want to create, to become the resilient souls who've grown stronger and more loving by bonding together through it. We can become more faithful by trusting that God is indeed in work in all of this, even if we can't see it right now. We can let our breaking down become our breaking through. May it be so. Amen.